Hello class, and welcome to section 9.6, which is about the quadratic formula. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to state the quadratic formula, use it to solve quadratics, and use the portion of the quadratic formula called the discriminant to determine the number of solutions that there will be. So our quadratic formula is something we're going to use when the quadratic is written in standard form. So ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. It has to be in this format in order for us to use the formula. If it is not set up like this, we have to rearrange so that it is in this order. The formula itself says negative b, or the opposite of b value, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. I'm going to post a couple things in your Google Classroom as well, a couple little songs that you can listen to help you remember this formula. So let's actually use it. We've got x squared minus 12x equals negative 20. It's not in our standard form yet, so I'm going to go ahead and add 20 to both sides, giving me x squared minus 12x plus 20 is equal to 0. And then one thing I like to do to make sure that I keep my numbers straight is I take this additional step and say a is equal to 1 because the number in front of x squared is 1, b is equal to negative 12, and c is equal to 20. That's going to help you keep your numbers straight. Now, setting up the formula, we have negative b, so the opposite of b. So we've got 12 plus or minus, I'll explain what that means a little more in a minute, the square root of b squared, so remember negatives go in parentheses, so negative 12 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 20. And then that whole thing is being divided by 2 times the a value, which in this case is 1. Next, what you are going to want to do is plug the part under the square root, so negative 12 squared minus 4 times 1 times 20, into your calculator exactly as written. That's going to simplify your square root number. So we're going to have negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 64 over, and then we can simplify the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Then you're going to go ahead. What this plus minus part means is that your first answer is going to be 12 plus the square root of 64. We know the square root of 64 is 8, so we've got 12 plus 8 divided by 2. And then your second portion is 12 minus 8 divided by 2. So instead of having to write out these two middle steps as two separate things, we just put the plus minus in there while we're writing it out. And then when we actually solve, we split it into one that's plus and one that's minus. When I do 12 plus 8 divided by 2, I end up with an answer of 10. And when I do 12 minus 8 divided by 2, I end up with an answer of 2. So that means my x answers are 10, and we also have that x is equal to 2. So those are our two solutions for this particular quadratic equation. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So you have that a is 4, b is negative 24, and c is 35. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Simplify the square root, break it up into the plus case and the minus case, and your two answers are 3.5 and 2.5. Just another example here. So we've got a in this case is going to be negative 2. So our a value is negative 2. Our b value is 9, and our c value is 7. So once again, we're going to set up and we're going to say the opposite of b. so negative 9, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 9 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 2, times c, which is 7, all over 2 times the a, which is negative 2. Then you are going to go ahead and type 9 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 7 into your calculator. And that simplified is going to be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 137, all divided by 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4. So now when you are simplifying this, you're going to type the square root of 137 into your calculator, and we're going to have negative 9 plus 11 point, and then it's 704. That 4 tells us that we are going to round and keep it at 70. If it had been bigger than 5, then we would have rounded up to 71. But for now, we round to 2 decimal places and keep it at 70. So we've got that divided by negative 4. And then you have your other option, which is negative 9 minus that same square root, so 11.70 divided by negative 4. Your first answer is going to give you negative 0.68, and your second answer is going to give you 5.18. Again, when you type this part in, it is critical that you have that parentheses around that numerator part so that it happens, so that your calculator follows PEMDAS correctly. So our answers are x is equal to negative 0.68 and x is equal to 5.8 after you have done your quadratic formula to solve. Go ahead and try this one on your own. A is 5, B is 2, C is negative 9. Plug it in, opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C divided by 2A. Simplify the square root, turn it into its decimal value, and you get your two answers of 1.16 and negative 1.56. One more example on this. If we have that A is 3, B is negative 2, and C is 9. When I start setting up my quadratic, I've got opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared, remembering negatives go in parentheses, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. Once again, you're going to go ahead and simplify. So we got 2 plus or minus the square root. And when you solve this, you get negative 104 over 6. When you end up with a negative inside the square root, that is going to tell you that this is a no real solutions problem, or 0 real solutions, because you cannot take the square root of a negative number. That square root part is actually something we specifically call the discriminant. So that's just the b squared minus 4ac part of the equation. That's going to be used to tell you how many solutions there are to the problem. If you get a positive answer for under the square root, it's going to be 2 solutions, like those first 4 problems that we went through in the video. If the answer to b squared minus 4ac is 0, there's just going to be 1 answer, because adding 0 and subtracting 0 are going to give you the same value. And then if you get a negative, like I showed you in that last problem, we had square root of negative 104, that's when you are going to have no solution. So we're going to use the discriminant to find the number of solutions. So once again, we need to have it in standard form. So 4x squared plus 5x, and then I need to add 3 to both sides of my equation. So plus 3 is equal to 0. Then I'm going to go ahead and say that a equals 4, b equals 5, and C equals 3, once again, just to make sure I keep those numbers straight. Then to find just my discriminant, I've got 5 squared minus 4 times 3, which is going to give you an answer of negative 23. Since that answer is a negative, you would have 0 real solutions, or no solutions to this particular quadratic function. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Adding 11x to both sides, that goes in the middle as our b value. So we had a was equal to 2, b was equal to 11, and c was equal to 15. Plug that in, b squared minus 4 times a times c. You get a discriminant of 1, which means there are 2 real solutions. If you have questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please let me know when you get to class.